Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, which is brought to you by Wellness Forum Health, the Wellness Forum Institute, and Make Americans Free Again. We're taking applications right now to start a Food Over Medicine Club or a Make Americans Free Again tribe. Send me an email if you'd like to know more about that. Membership drive is still on. Never members who become members will give you a gift certificate equal to the amount you pay in dues. If you are an existing member and you refer a never member, we'll do the same thing for you, whatever that person spends. So anyway, this is the time to get engaged with Wellness Forum. We'll make it very rewarding for you in addition to the fabulous programming we provide. The other thing I'll remind you about is the Cancer Summit starts tomorrow night. And I was thinking to myself as I was getting organized for this and putting my own slides together, if I were paying these speakers to just talk to me, it would be worth it because of what I learned from them when I listened to them speak. So don't miss this. If you can't be with us live, you know we always record this stuff so you can watch it later. If you're a member of Wellness Forum, you'll have access to it for the duration of your membership. You won't even be under any pressure to listen to it within a prescribed period of time. We just have a lot planned, ranging from an afternoon spent on the psychological aspect of cancer, because it is definitely important in terms of preventing cancer and getting rid of it, both, and then treatment options and hearing from people with cancer and their journey and trying to figure out what to do and so on. So anyway, if you want information on that, send me an email. It's not too late to register. We specialize in the last minute. As much as we tell people not to wait till the last minute, we can deal with it. All right, so I'm going to cover one topic today. It's an important one, and it's about the withdrawal of Dr. David Weldon to head the Centers for Disease Control. I think it's disappointing, but the story behind it and some related information that I will venture to guess you don't know about, but I'm going to share with you based on my own personal experience and some people that I know personally, and other data, to put this in context and help you understand what we are up against here. So we have to keep filing lawsuits. We have to organize, because when you really understand the breadth of the problem, you'll see that conventional ways of addressing it are just not an available option. So Dr. David Weldon, by way of background, is a medical doctor, a former Republican member of Congress who was nominated to head the CDC. His nomination was withdrawn by the White House after it became clear that there just would not be enough votes to confirm him. And so looking at it from their standpoint, you don't want a failure. They've gotten most of their people through. And so if you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. Weldon subsequently issued a statement, parts of which revealed just how much control drug companies maintain over Congress and the swamp in DC. So despite administering hundreds of vaccines every year in his medical practice, Weldon was labeled an anti-vaxxer because over 20 years ago, he raised some concerns about childhood vaccine safety. The swamp and their drug lord sponsors explicitly prohibit any criticism or even questioning any aspect of the child vaccine schedule. Weldon states that Susan Collins expressed her concerns to RFK, and Chairman Bill Cassidy planned to vote no, referring to Weldon as an anti-vaxxer and claiming that Weldon believed vaccines caused autism, which Weldon denies, and he clarifies, and I'll get to that in a minute. Weldon notes the power of Big Pharma not only over Congress, but also the media, and notes that drug companies donate generously to medical societies and colleges and universities. So this gives the companies a lot of control over everything from public speech to medical practice to laws regulating their products. Weldon claims he learned the hard way that you don't mess with Big Pharma. He reports that 25 years ago, he was hearing from hundreds of parents from all over the country who reported that their child had been injured by vaccines and developed autism. The parents made two assertions. One was that the FDA and CDC had allowed pharma to add copious amounts of the preservative thimerosal, a known neurotoxin, to vaccines given to infants, and this caused their children to regress. Weldon, along with many other members of Congress, both Democrat and Republican, pressured CDC and Pharma to remove thimerosal. By the way, there's a great book about this written by David Kirby called Evidence of Harm. It's a whole book about this whole issue. Well, at that time, none of the members involved in this effort, including Bernie Sanders, took money from Big Pharma. So note the change. Bernie Sanders was all for investigating this connection, but then he starts taking money from Big Pharma, and you saw the fiery exchange with RFK during his confirmation hearing. God forbid you touch vaccines and that sort of thing. So they definitely do buy people, and we watch it happening. So anyway, he essentially attacked RFK for wanting to investigate and find out what's making our kids so sick, and that is expressly not allowed by Big Pharma. Weldon also took on CDC and Pharma over the MMR vaccine after Andrew Wakefield in the UK reported seeing many young children whose parents noted that after receiving the MMR vaccine, their children had developmentally deteriorated and had severe diarrhea. Colonoscopies revealed that the children had a new form of an inflammatory bowel disease. Wakefield published 15 articles, only one of which was withdrawn, and there's a story behind this. So Wakefield was a licensed medical doctor at the UK working at the Royal Free. He, on February 28th, 1998, 12 colleagues and Wakefield published a case series in The Lancet, which described 12 children with autism spectrum disorder who also had mild to moderate inflammation in the large intestine, swelling of lymph glands in the lining of the small intestine. Most parents reported onset right after MMR. Now, the thing to understand about this is a case series describes the experience of a group of patients with a similar diagnosis or similar symptoms. Researchers or doctors will identify an unusual feature which could lead to a new hypothesis. So it was stated in the paper, it was, quote, a consecutive series of children with chronic enterocolitis and regressive developmental disorder. So this case series is different than other types of research. The goal is observation in order to raise a hypothesis that can be investigated. So in the Lancet paper, no disorder was stated, no features or timing of onset were required, no initial exposure was necessary, no outcome was predicted, and there was no causal association claimed. It was just reporting what they had seen with these kids. So, as you might imagine, parents in the UK started refusing to allow their children to get the MMR vaccine. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago in my video and subsequent article on the measles vaccine, when parents start asserting authority over their children, government, public health, and Big Pharma become alarmed, and they put an end to it very quickly. In this case, government officials forced the Lancet to withdraw the article. Wakefield was investigated and lost his medical license, basically because he didn't have the money to fight the charges. Two other doctors who were authors of the paper did fight the charges and challenged the government and won. The rest of the doctors were left alone. Pharma only needs to destroy one person, in this case Wakefield, to teach others not to engage in this abominable questioning behavior. Asking questions is bad. You all know that, right? Well, Weldon mentions in his article that he discussed this issue with Wakefield, who agrees about vaccinating children against measles, but thought that perhaps vaccinating the kids at an older age or that could help, or God forbid, conducting research to find out why some kids have such a reaction to MMR. Again, this is not permitted. Looking into it is not permitted. You are an anti-vax quack if you suggest looking into it. In an interview with Cheryl Atkinson in 2023, Weldon reported that Pharma was not above issuing threats to stop investigations into harms from their sacred cow products, vaccines. Cheryl says, if you would want to hold a hearing on an issue like vaccines and autism, your own leadership might fight you on that because of financial influence in the pharmaceutical industry. Weldon says they wouldn't fight you, they'd kill it. It's dead. They don't even want to discuss it. It's dead on arrival. If you as an individual member want to take on the pharmaceutical industries, it's forget it. Cheryl says, can you describe an incident or just how that would go? And Weldon replies, it would typically be in a hallway or the street, or people would come up to you and say, you really need to, back off on this. It could be bad for the community, bad for the country, or bad for you. Veiled threats. So what I want to do is share with you a couple of excerpts from this book. It's called Deadly Medicines and Organized Crime. It's written by Peter Goethe, a friend and colleague of mine who started Nordic Cochrane in Denmark. And in the book, he makes the comparison to drug companies and between drug companies and organized crime because they behave in much the same way. So I'm just going to read you a couple of paragraphs here so you get the gravity of the situation. There are many similarities to mob crimes. Those who threaten the income from the crimes are exposed to violence, the difference being that in the drug industry, the violence is not of a physical but psychological nature, which can be equally devastating. This violence includes intimidation, instigation of fear, threats of firing or legal proceedings, actual firing and litigation, unfounded accusations of scientific misconduct, and other attempts at defamation and destruction of research careers. The maneuvers are often carried out by the industry's lawyers, and private detectives might be involved. It's highly stressful to become a whistleblower, and cases take 5 years on average. Peter Rost has described how things went for 233 people who blew the whistle on fraud. 90% were fired or demoted, 27% faced lawsuits, 26% had to seek psychiatric or physical care, 25% suffered alcohol abuse, 17% lost their homes, 15% got divorced, 10% attempted suicide, 8% went bankrupt. In spite of this, only 16% said that they wouldn't blow the whistle again. And then I'll just read this other paragraph. The threats can be particularly malignant when scientists have found lethal harms with marketed drugs that the companies have successfully concealed. Such threats have included frightening telephone calls from the company warning that very bad things could happen, cars waiting near the researcher's home through the night, a ghoulish funeral gift, or an anonymous letter containing a picture of the researcher's young daughter leaving home to go to school. Not much difference to organized gang crime there. Journalists have often been threatened with reprisals. A lawyer phoned a journalist who'd written critically about the drug industry based on my research, and he said he called on behalf of a friend. He was interested in knowing how she'd gotten access to documents that the company considered strictly confidential. He wouldn't reveal who his client was. He called again and threatened her by saying that journalists who are critical toward the drug industry may lose everything: their family, their friends, and their job. The journalist got very scared and didn't sleep much that night. This has happened to me. It has happened to other people I know. It's one of the reasons I live alone with a cat. Not many people would want to move into this house and deal with these kinds of threats in the position I put myself in, so I don't involve anybody else in it. But here's the point. I'm not complaining. I'm a big girl. I signed up for it. I signed up for it a long time before the COVID thing happened. But what I am saying is that it's important that we understand what we're up against. Now you understand how silly it is to send emails to Congress or try to get our legislatures to pass laws that weaken the power of drug companies. And perhaps you'll show just a tiny bit of grace to RFK, who's trying to navigate this organized crime-infested mess and stay alive and get something done. Remember, he's had 2 family members who were murdered because they were incredibly inconvenient. And I'll remind you that we can take our drug-sponsored legislatures out at some point in time if we develop the fortitude, intestinal fortitude to do it. And that requires organizing so that you have thousands of people in each state district. You start taking out your local state legislators, and eventually you can do this in Congress. But it's remarkably difficult to get people to commit to signing on with an organization and amassing enough power that you could actually do it. Right now, our best bet is to file lawsuits and more lawsuits and more lawsuits and more lawsuits, because so far the courts have been willing to put themselves, at least for now, in the situation of taking action against big pharma, public health, etc. So it's a daunting task we've taken on to fix it. It is fixable, but we have to recognize it's not fixable with some of the silly ideas that still get thrown around out here. And it's difficult, and I understand why people just throw up their hands and quit when you have to listen to the garbage that comes from people who don't understand this issue and just wonder, well, why don't these people do this? And why don't they do that? And why don't they just stand up and cancel this? And I mean, if you just understood, I hope you do understand actually what this fight is really all about and how deep, dark, and ugly this whole thing is. So please fund our lawsuits. It's the best chance of doing something now. Please join Make Americans Free Again. It's our best chance of getting rid of some of these god-awful swamp creatures and their pharmaceutical sponsors a little later when we've had time to do it. I'll remind you again, in Ohio, the average state legislator wins his seat or her seat by 1,000, 2,000 votes. You have more than that, you can sway the election. More than that and Make Americans Free Again members. You can do the same thing in Congress. It just requires signing up your name. And even if you can't send money, my gosh, you can go online at makeamericansfreeagain.com and join. Let's do it. If we don't do it, the drug companies are amassing more, not less power while I'm talking to you and you're watching this video right now. And they will continue to do it unless we do something about it. And I'm telling you, we can. We already have to a certain extent. We can really make a dent. All right, so I hope that this helps you to better understand this situation in which we find ourselves. I've told you since March of 2020, nothing new, just bigger, more of it. Let's see, this book is, I don't know, 300 pages of malfeasance by the drug companies, and it was written a dozen years ago. Again, not new, it's just all bigger now. So let's do something about it. I'm asking for your help. Send money and sign up. Those are the two things you can do to help. I'm willing to take the risk. The attorneys are willing to take the risk. We're out front, open, subject to ridicule and threats and everything else. As a result of doing this, we're willing to do it. We just need your help. All right. I wish I could be more cheery today, but I think sometimes a dose of reality is really what's required. That's what I've given you here. That's it for now. My email address is pampopper@msn.com. MakeAmericans.com is where you can donate and sign up as a member. And if you're interested in any of the things I mentioned at the beginning of this video, like the Cancer Summit and starting a tribe or a food over medicine group, send me an email, pampopper@msn.com. Thank you so much for watching. As usual, pass this on to anybody you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you next week with more news.